You just made a great decision because you decided to tune into the Football Podcast. This is the top 10 greatest cornerbacks of all time. Watch till the end because there will absolutely be some big surprises. And we're going to answer the burning question. If your last name is Woodson, are you destined to become the greatest cornerback of all time? OY, NF, how y'all doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Doing good, man. Ready to go.
Let's do it. I'm going to start off by saying that, like other pods, this is going to be a part of the modern era, which means you had to play at some point in the 80s, even if you started playing in the 60s or 70s. You got to have played sometime in the 80s. And this was a very difficult list to make, in my opinion, more so than any of the offense ones. Because I'll say on one hand, you can have all the stats, which is interceptions, passes, defense, whatever, forced fumbles, interception returns, all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, as a cornerback, you can have no stats and still be elite because basically all you're doing is just taking your receiver out of the game. So it's very, very tricky. It was very tricky to make this list, in my opinion, at least. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, this is a collective list of everyone. They all sent me their list. OY and NF did. Rolly did too. But he's missing. So if anyone knows what happened to Rolly, put it in the comment section because we don't know. We're going to go ahead and start with number 10. Our number 10 greatest cornerback of all time is a tie between Rhonde Barber and Eric Allen. And this was due to a last second change by NF here that just barely got Rhonde Barber on this list. So
he wasn't on the list?
Was not on the list. He's actually only on my and Naif's list. So I'm going to give the floor to Naif here. Talk about Rhonde.
Yeah, I'm glad I made that change. I mean, it was a last second change. I had him at number 10.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to know that by switching him to number 9, I got him to make the list. But yeah, I was just going through the list, and I'm just going to preface this by saying 7 out of the 10 CBs I have on the list all led the league at one point in interceptions. So they led, statistically, they were an interception leader during a given season. Dude, Barber, 5-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowl, led the league in INTs 2001, Super Bowl champ, 14 pick sixes, most consecutive starts by a defensive back, 224 games in a row, and 47 career interceptions. You have to have him on your top 10 list, I think.
Yeah. And I was extremely surprised because when I saw how well-rounded this guy was, I had him at number 6 on my list. Like you mentioned, 47 INTs, but also 923 interception return yards. So that's 17th all-time. And to me, I'm going to just preface this. I think interceptions are the most important factor, and they're weighed very, very heavily for me when I'm considering it because it's both defense and offense. It's the one statistic that's very consistently defense and offense. Yes, you can have forced fumbles that you take back, but cornerbacks aren't usually known for that. So I weighed interceptions very heavily in my ranking here. And like you mentioned, I think he had 8 interception touchdowns and 4 forced fumble touchdowns. So that's how he got to the 12. So he's 8th all time in interception touchdowns and 4th all time in fumble return TDs.
And I think I was counting playoffs too.
Oh, playoffs too. Okay. And he had 197. Okay, and I'll say about passes defensed as well. This is a stat that they only started recording in 1999, so that's also going to impact this a little bit and how we see the stats. But according to the stats, he has 197 passes defensed. That's 3rd all time, and he has over 1,000 tackles, which is he's 10th all time in tackles. He played for 16 years. He has an incredibly, incredibly well-rounded resume here, and that's why I had him at 6. OY, I know you had him on your list as well, but right outside the top 10.
Yeah, he was like my he was basically like my second honorable mention, basically, after Felipe Sparks.
Whoa, Felipe Sparks.
I don't know who that is.
Jordan Sparks' father.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Felipe Sparks is
American
Jordan
Idol,
Sparks'
Jordan
father?
Sparks? Yeah.
And Bubba Sparks' brother.
No. But that one's true.
I'm going to talk about Eric Allen, who basically he only made my list. And I had him at number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm going to go ahead and go off on my Eric Allen rant here. So, like I said, I weigh interceptions more heavily than anything else. He had 54 interceptions. That's 4th all time amongst the modern cornerbacks. That's more than Deion Sanders, who played 3 more years than him. That's more than Darell Green, who played 6 more years than him. More than Champ Bailey, Darelle Revis, Ty Law, Rhonde Barber, all the greats in fewer years. So he also has 826 interception return yards. He has 8 interception touchdowns, including a 94-yard interception touchdown that NFL Films said was the greatest interception return of all time, according to them. And he has a fumble recovery as well. So he has 9 defensive touchdowns. So he's top 10 all time in defensive touchdowns. He did that all in 14 years. He played before passes defensed were accounted for, essentially. And to me, he's the most criminally underrated cornerback of the modern era, and it's crazy that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He's not, given his historically enduring statistics in a relatively limited time frame. So,
sorry to cut you off, but I think Darell Green also had 54 interceptions.
Tied with.
Yeah,
So he was tied with. He had more than Deion Sanders, tied with Darell Green, and more than any of the other. Many of the other greats.
I think I speak for a while when I say we'll consider his Hall of Fame entry once Darren Woodson gets into the Hall of Fame.
Well, I understand that this is like an Eagles Cowboys thing. That's my guess as to why maybe you guys left him off this list.
Amen.
Is that why?
Slept on Woodson.
You're back, OY. Yeah. So go ahead. You can wrap on Eric Allen and then touch on Barber.
So I actually like Eric Allen a lot, both as a player and as an analyst. I don't know if you guys remember, but he used to be on ESPN. He was actually really good on TV. I agree with you. I do think he's underrated. Part of those Buddy Ryan defenses, which are really good. I just don't know if he's that under. I don't know if I'd put him top 10 because what I looked at a lot was how do these players compare to their peers. So things like, did they make the all-decade team, or did they, how many all-pros did they make? Things like that. I know you touched on picks, but I also weighed very heavily how these players played in coverage. How they played against your receivers, because like you said, for corners the stats aren't always obvious, right? For some of these guys, we're going to see it's going to be really apparent. So Eric Allen was really, really good. And I think he is one of the best corners of the 90s and of his era. I just don't know if, me personally, I just don't know if I can put him above, some of these other guys that I have on here. And real quick, just to touch on Barber, I guess before I give it over to Naif. I had Barber just outside of the top 10. To me, he is maybe the most criminally underrated because nobody talks about this guy. He was also a member of the All-Decades team when he played, part of that Tampa Bay defense, an integral part of that great Tampa Bay defense. And he showed up in big moments. And these might be the 2 greatest twins in the NFL, right? The Barbers.
I would agree.
So yeah, Rhonde definitely deserves to be on here, and I can see why you'd want to put Eric Allen. I wouldn't put him quite this high, but I do think he was a great player for sure.
Yeah.
On a redo, I think I'd put Eric Allen over my number 10 after Omar rambled off those stats. Honestly,
amazing. He's just on that cusp of qualifying for that. this modern era, I guess, because he did play kind of a long time ago. But we're gonna move to number 9 here. Our number 9 guy is. Speaking of barely making the modern era, it's Mel Blount at number 9. And there's only one guy here that had him on his list.
Let me guess.
And that is OY.
Roddy, obviously. It was Roddy.
Roddy did not have him on his list. Roddy's MIA, by the way. We are putting funds towards getting Roddy's picture on a milk carton so we can try to find out where he is. OY, go ahead and talk to us about Mel Blount, man. You got him on here as number 9. But he's not number 9 on your list.
No, he's probably like number 3, right?
All right, top 5. I think I have him at number 4 on my list. Yeah, so look, like, with the, it's like, again, you have to look at how they played in their time. If you're comparing to, like, you can't do that. So, look at how Mel Blount played in his time. He was like this physical presence for that Steelers team. And they instituted that rule, that 5-yard rule for him. Like, that's like the Mel Blount rule. Knife and I were kind of talking about this the other day, actually. Like, he would just physically, like, just... I'm not going to say how Knife said it. I'm not going to say that. But, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who just...
On brand for the Steelers, no? I said that's pretty on brand for the Steelers, right?
Is that what they do?
But yeah, so, 2-time All-Pro, or 2-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time second-team All-Pro, 5 Pro Bowls, led the league in picks in 75, All-Decades team, 75th anniversary team, 100th anniversary team, and of course, Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champ. I have to have him on this list. But again, like, I'm very high on him. Because of how he played, but also how he impacted the game. The 5-yard rule is there because of him. So that's why I'm sure, like, if we went back further, I think this is part of the reason why he's low on this list is because we're kind of like, we have
in our
admittedly
mid-30s.
like a modern bias, right? Like we're relying more on the modern guys. But if we go back and include like the older guys, he's going to be a lot higher on this list.
Yeah. NF, you got anything to say about Mel Blount?
Yeah, I do. So I think that rule is very important. I mean, if you see his production after that rule, there's a huge drop off. I also think that if you don't institute that rule, all these other guys, all of a sudden, if they can do what he did, they would they would be higher than him. So if you allowed all these modern corners to assault wide receivers, I think they'd be much better than him. Yeah. So I think he benefited from that rule tremendously.
Absolutely. Well, I think he deserves a distinction for having created a big rule at the position. So that's what I'll say about Mel Blount. We're going to go ahead and move on to our number 8 guy. Number 8 cornerback of all time is Ty Law, the New England Patriot great. He was on all of our lists, me, OY, and Naif. He wasn't on the Rada's list, but he's not here to talk about him because we don't know where he is. We don't know where he is. So we're going to go ahead and start with OY here. Talk about Ty Law, where you had him, and what you think about him.
So Ty Law was actually really hard for me to place. I almost didn't put him on the list, honestly, but I have him on those lists for 2 reasons. One, the teams that he played for, he's a multiple-time Super Bowl champion. I know, like, we don't look at corners as, like, we don't attribute them to championships. But the thing is, he was an integral part of those championships. He made plays in big moments in the playoffs and in those games. And he was reliable, he was consistent, and, he was coached by maybe the greatest coach of the past, 30 years, right? So I had, I was going back and forth, but, I put him at number 10 on the list because I had to have him on here, and I think he absolutely deserves to be up there.
Yeah. NF, as you sip your Shay, talk about Ty Law to us.
Cold brew. Yeah, what can you say, man? 7 career touchdowns, 53 career interceptions, led the league in picks 98 and 2005. 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 2-time All-Pro. I had him at number 7, and then I switched him to number 6 in the 11th hour. I was pretty impressed by his stats, man. These stats are crazy. And yeah, as O.Y. said, we don't contribute Super Bowls to cornerbacks, but that first Brady Super Bowl, I think Ty Law played a huge role. I don't think they would have won that Super Bowl if it wasn't for him, or gotten to the Super Bowl if it wasn't for him. Yeah. So I had him at number 6 on my list.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you read off a lot of the stats that I had here. He had 108 passes defense as well, 51st all-time. That was 53 interceptions, makes him 24th all-time, did it in 15 years, was a part of those really, really good Patriots teams. Had a lot of tackles as well, a lot of solo tackles, very good at that. Just a great player. Deserves to be on this list. I don't have much else to say about this guy. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next guy on our list, which is the number 7 greatest cornerback of all time. The ageless one, Darell Green, the great Washington Redskins / football team / commander / probably new name. They're probably going to rename this team again after Magic Johnson. Maybe they'll call them the Lakers or the Sixers or Go-Go. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to call him. But Darell Green here, he was on all of our lists. I was surprised Rhonde even knew about him. By the way, we're going to put out an APB on Rhonde because we don't know where he is yet. OY, I'll let you go ahead and start. Darell Green.
Yeah, man. So I had him at number 7, so it's not consistent with he's at on the list. One of the best corners of his time, and it was for a long time. Like, I remember when he was like in his late 30s, the guy could still fly, right? Like he could still catch these players from behind. I remember, and he was a big part of a lot of those Washington defenses for those Super Bowls. Back when they were actually good. 4-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. I don't know. I don't know that there's much more to say other than he was an undersized guy, and he, I think overachieved beyond like his kind of physical, limitations to kind of place himself on this list.
Big time. And for like a guy that played for Washington to be on any all-time great list is a huge achievement because that franchise is sad.
Yeah.
Right? Do you agree, NF, as a Cowboy fan?
Yeah, especially on that last point. I think OY agrees on with this too. I think he's one of the only Washington players that you can respect. I mean, as a Cowboy fan, to be honest. 2-time Super Bowl champ, most consecutive seasons with an interception, 19 straight seasons with an interception. That's pretty ageless wonder.
He's also one of the few guys who's worse as an analyst than Emmitt Smith was. So he also has that distinction.
I didn't even know he was an analyst.
He was like a local. He was only local.
Really?
I just remember.
Yeah, they all suck. Yeah, you're talking about him being fast in his 30s. This guy ran a 4.340 at 50 years old.
Really?
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Incredibly impressive. Wow. Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, I'll go.
I had him at number 4, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah.
High.
Amazing. Well, I had him at number 9 on my list, kind of barely cracking the top 10. 54 INTs, 21st all time. Where did Aldi have him?
Yeah.
I think he had him 10th, something like that. 621 interception return yards, and that's kind of surprising given how fast he was. That he didn't have more return yards when he got interceptions. He has 6 interception return touchdowns, and he played for 20 years. He played before passes defense were a stat, but this is also, I always mention it on this list, but the guys that play for a long time and rack up a lot of stats, Frank Gore's, Emmitt Smith's, there's another guy that I brought up last time, I don't know, Jason Witten, people like that. If you just play kind of long enough and you keep that, it doesn't have to be an elite level, but like a really, really good level, then it's very impressive. So he got on this list because of how long he played, and that's like a testament to his longevity, stamina, resilience, whatever you want to call it. Very impressive guy. So
He
Darell,
retired at 42.
42.
42.
So he started at 22. Yeah, impressive. I mean, I remember him playing on those teams as like very solidly the veteran. Like he was like 10 years older than like a lot of guys most of the guys on his team. But we're gonna go ahead and move into our number 6 greatest cornerback of all time, which is Aeneas Williams, the Ram, the Cardinal. He was on, again, the 3 of our lists here, not the Rada's list. Again, if you've heard from the Rada, please let us know. Please, leave a comment, send us a direct message. We are concerned about his well-being. Naif, I'm going to go ahead and let you start here. What did you think of Aeneas Williams? You had a last-second switch here. Change of heart on Aeneas.
Yeah, a little flip-flop. I had him at 6 and then I flipped him to 7 with Ty Law. Dude, this guy had 55 career interceptions, 5-time All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, led the league in picks in 1994. Just think he was one of the most underrated cornerbacks of all time. He just played for the Cardinals for a very long time, and I think that really hurt his stock. If he plays for a slightly better defense, I think he'll be a little higher on this list, maybe with a Super Bowl.
You're right, yeah. OY, drop your opinion on Aeneas on us here.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Naif said. I just remember watching him growing up, and he was always like the one player that the Cardinals had, right?
Yeah.
And, like they had nothing.
I don't remember anybody from those 90s before Jake Plummer. I don't remember anybody else.
Yeah, nothing. And he'd always show up.
Yeah.
He'd always make plays. I remember he'd always battle Irvin, and he held his own, man. And I think he is absolutely, one of the guys who can hold up with his peers, and that his peers might have been the greatest era of corners, actually. So I mean, I don't have too much to add to what Naif said, as far as his statistical kind of like history goes, but yeah, Aeneas Williams, that's another guy who's underrated. Everybody forgets about him. I had him at 9, but that's just because these guys are so hard to, stack, kind of like that. I mean, Naif had to switch up his list because he's going back and forth.
No.
But yeah, definitely one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I told you guys, I weigh interceptions very, very heavily. He played for 14 years and had 55 interceptions. I had him number 3 on my list. And also, one thing that was very, very impressive about this guy, like you said, he was elite. He carried that team when they had nothing. He had also 12 defensive touchdowns. Really, really impressive. 807 interception return yards as well, 27th all time. Just like these stats, like you just can't put him any lower than this, given the amount of time that he played. Just really, really impressive.
I thought OY would have had him higher.
It was hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys, and we're gonna start talking about them here because we're gonna go into our top 5. We're entering our top 5 here. So the number 5 greatest cornerback of all time is the guy with a great name, Champ Bailey, the great Denver Bronco, and Washington as well. So Washington does have some great cornerbacks. He was on my list. He was on OY's list, and he was on the Rada's list, but he was not on Naif's list. So OY, we're going to start with you here, and then we'll matriculate on down.
That's a little surprising.
Yeah, no, I'm a little surprised now too. I completely forgot about this guy.
Wow. You changed your list 3 times, bro.
Yeah, listen. I have one guy I'll knock off the list. I'll gladly knock off the list for him. 2, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I have Champ at 6 on my list, just above Darell Green. I do think there was a point where he surpassed Darell Green, like, those Washington kind of corners. Here's an interesting thing about Washington. 2000, they had Champ Bailey, Darell Green, and another corner who's on this list, all on the same defense.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that was kind of
you can say his name. I think we all have him number 1. So.
Do we?
Do we? I don't know.
What?
I don't know that we do.
We better have them all. We better all have.
That's a little crumb for everyone to stick around here and subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and follow us on Spotify. Listen on there. Go ahead, OY. Continue.
Yeah, but look, here's so 3-time first team all pro, 4-time second team all pro. Here's something that I actually didn't know until I started looking. 12-time Pro Bowler. Like, this guy made 12. I didn't even realize like he played that long. Like, it doesn't seem like it. But 12-time Pro Bowler, and I think he was elite for a long time. And this is a coverage guy. Like, I know, like you're saying, like you're valuing picks.
Mhm.
Champ to me was a coverage guy, a guy who was fantastic in coverage, even if he's not getting the interception. And he was also, I think, one of the best athletes at the position. Right? He could hang with any of these great wide receivers. He could play wide receiver a little bit. He could return. Champ, I still say it to this day, one of the worst trades of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Trading him for a running back. I know Portis was great, but looking at it in hindsight, Washington had like 2 of the greatest corners of all time on the same team.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you're right. Champ Bailey is the king of the pass deflections. He has 203. Nobody has more than 200. He's first all time. And 52 interceptions, really good. And this is the first of those guys, and we're going to see maybe some other of them on this list. And this is going to be a very interesting conversation that the stats actually belie how good he was, because really he was just kind of a great cover guy that a lot of people wouldn't even throw his way because of how good he was, and they feared him in that way. I had him at number 8 on my list. Again, this is a very tricky list to make, but I had him at number 8 for a lot of those reasons. NF, talk your piece about Champ. Why'd you leave him off? Is it because he was a Redskin?
No. It was a complete oversight on my part. He definitely makes the list if I do this over, especially over my number 10. Maybe even over my number 8 and 9. I don't know how I left him out. I had him initially on my mind. I guess I completely forgot about him when I was going down the list. But if I were to do it again, I'd definitely have him on the list. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
I mean, he was a great Denver Broncos cornerback. What more can you say?
Yeah, just Denver Broncos. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're gonna move into the number 4 guy. This is gonna be a very interesting discussion. At number 4, we have Darelle Revis, Revis Island, the great New York Jet, the great New England Patriot, the guy that likes to run his mouth a lot on Twitter. So this is where it gets interesting. Naif, he was on your list. OY was on your list. He was on Rudley's list. He did not make my top 10. Did not make my top 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's a bigger oversight.
Do you think so? Do you want me to tell you why? You want me to start here and tell you why?
I already know why he's not.
I already know why he's not on your list. Yeah, you already said you valued these interceptions, but this is not his fault, man.
Listen,
you cannot blame him for this.
Okay. Well, listen. It's very, very, very tricky to judge a guy with terrible stats. Okay, the stats he has is not even close to being somebody in the Hall of Fame. Okay, we'll go ahead and admit the Rada here, who is in a shisha cafe. We're talking about Darelle Revis here. First of all, thank you all so much for your help. We had put an APB. We put your name on a milk carton. We finally found you. Thanks to everyone that helped to find the Rada. Thank you so much. And we're gonna get to you.
I'm so embarrassed.
It's okay. There's a lot of background.
No, man,
There's a lot of.
I was doing some work.
Yeah.
And time flew by. My phone was on silent. I'm so sorry.
No worries. There's a lot of background
Where
noise.
we at?
Yeah, there's a lot of background.
There's a lot of background noise, so let's let me get to you in a second here. We're gonna talk about Darelle Revis. So
All right, I'll mute myself.
okay. So basically, I didn't have him on my top 10 because he didn't do his resume stats wise, interception wise is just like there's nothing to draw from, and of course I'm gonna admit there's probably a lot of guys that didn't throw his way, and that's why he didn't merit getting on this list. But 29 interceptions, 233rd all time, 466 interception return, 199th all time. Only 3 interception touchdowns, 139th all time. 139 passes defensed. Actually, that's kind of low to have him so high on this list. That's 19th all time, and he only played for 11 years, guys. So I'm going to ask you guys to build your defense for having Darelle Revis at number 4. Go ahead, Nev, since you're raising your hand. Sorry.
Now, if you go first, I'm kind of pulling something up.
Okay. I had him at number 5. And everything you said is true. Yeah, he had very little pass breakups. He had very little interceptions. He had very little. A lot of these stats that you value, he had very little numbers when it comes to that. But it's hard to build numbers in those categories when you're not getting the ball thrown to your side. This guy's one of the greatest shutdown corners of all time. If not number 1, he's number 2. Yep. 4-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. 2009, I think, is the greatest season by any cornerback ever. He allowed less than a yard per coverage snap during that year. Allowed a QB rating of 29.1, which is never going to be broken. Allowed a completion percentage of 37.8. So if you're throwing to his side in 2009, you're completing it under 40% of the time. That's an unbreakable record. Dude, this guy was the shutdown island. I mean, they came up with a nickname for him, Revis Island. You couldn't throw to his side, man.
Yeah.
He made Antonio Cromartie look like a top 10 cornerback. And Cromartie was great at coming down with these picks, so maybe he would have made your honorable mentions, but that guy was nowhere near Darelle Revis. This guy's one of the greatest ever. Period.
I'm going to give it to you. Go ahead.
So I completely agree with you. When I said that there would be a guy that everybody would overrate, I was actually thinking about Revis because I thought people would have, you hear a lot of times people put him at number 2, which I think is way too high. I don't think he's the second greatest corner ever. But I do think he's top 5. I do think he is the best shutdown corner I've seen in the last 10 or 15 years. Again, he's not like a playmaker. He wasn't getting picks. He wasn't running them back. He wasn't doing any of those things. But he was completely taking away whoever he was on or that side of the field. So 2009, and this is what I was looking up. So including they played 3 playoff games that year. So Revis allowed 48 of 127 passes to be complete. That's 37.8% completion percentage. All right, so there's 2 touchdowns and 8 interceptions he allowed all year. That's a passer rating of 29.1, and I believe that's a record. So
I think I said it. I think I rambled both. That 2009 season was out of this world.
So here's how bad a 29 passer rating is, according to this website I'm looking at. So it's a Jets website, so take it for what it's worth. But they look at Ken O'Brien, and they point to him having an awful game at some point in 1991. He completed 13 of 29 passes, 44% completion percentage for 128 yards, a touchdown, and no touchdowns and 2 picks. That's a 29.1 passer rate. That is what would equate to what Revis was giving up on average that year. So I think that single season, I don't know if it's the greatest corner season ever, but I think it's the best I've seen.
He played Brady twice that year too.
Yeah. So this is the quintessential guy where we get into, okay, he doesn't have the stats, right? But was he that? This is the guy, I think, who's going to make that hard.
He should be the exception to your rule, Omar.
Well, okay, the thing is, and you know what? Let me let the Rada go ahead, because he was flashing, for those listening on Spotify or a podcast platform, he was flashing on his phone that stats don't matter for cornerbacks very boldly. So tell us why stats don't matter for cornerbacks, the Rada in the Shisha Bar.
First of all, I apologize for the sound. I hope you guys can at least hear what I'm saying. If you can, not good.
Go for it.
I saw that smile on your face, Omar, the whole time, because you knew my time was coming. You guys are totally missing the picture when it comes to CB. I'm hearing, percentage, passer rate. Who gives, bro? What stats are you looking at? If a guy doesn't know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. First of all,
he's coming for me.
I had him at 4, so he's exactly what he's supposed to be. He's great. Okay. Number 1.
This
Number
is
2.
We're number 6.
It's exactly what NF said. It's exact. Oh, this is 6?
Yeah.
No. He's number 4 in this list.
Yeah, number 4, bro. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I agree with exactly what NF said, and this applies to all these corners. All right, which is if they don't throw your direction, you get no stats for that. And sometimes they don't throw your direction. You know why? Because you're incredible.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite than an offense. If there's less stats for you, that's good for your corner. I mean, they're all afraid. And Darelle Revis had a culture around him. Revis Island, you guys talked about that earlier. You guys are missing these important details, which is whenever a player, especially defense, has a culture around him like Revis has, you should include that in your ratings.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, nobody's threw to this guy.
Just Omar. It's just Omar, man.
No, it's just me. I'm the only one that left him off my list. He was not even on my top 10, and I'll tell you why.
5 on my list.
He's not on my top list. And we mentioned this. I mentioned this before you got on here. Alhamdulillah, you're back with us. While you were kidnapped or in the torture chamber, wherever you were before, I mentioned that interceptions are the most important thing to consider in a quarterback because it's both defense and offense. It creates defense and an offense. And offense, you need points in order to win the game very fundamentally in football. Now, I understand. I understand that. I understand because there also are advanced statistics that NF and OY brought up, right? So, like, what is the opposing quarterback's passer rating when throwing to the receiver that the guy is covering? All these types of things. I understand that. But those are only defensive statistics. To me, interceptions become offense. That's why they are weighed so heavily for me. Now, let me ask you this, Dorado. Most important question here. Who is better, Darelle Revis or the guy that designed that shisha place that you're at that has an Argentinian flag, a picture of Feiruz, and in disparate letters in languages that I can't even understand? I mean, it's like they went on a Mac and then put together that. So who do you think is better between those two?
I think that font is more offensive than Darelle Revis.
Let me explain to you about this the whole interception thing that you said, okay?
Yeah.
You have to put interceptions into context. So if this guy had a lot of interceptions early in his career and they started decreasing as he grew older, which is the case for Darelle Revis, why do you think that is? Because people stopped throwing that way. He started getting all those picks.
True.
So don't tell me, he doesn't have a lot of interceptions.
Well, he doesn't have a lot of interceptions, but the reason why you are correct. It's just what one values, and to me, I value turning defense into offense because offense is what you need to score points, which is what you need to win the game.
You know what I value, bro? Flash,
I know.
culture.
And he had it. Hey, it was Revis Island. But also he talks a lot. He yaps. I don't like Revis's personality too. It was part of the reason why I left him off this list. He yaps a lot.
You probably have Richard Sherman really high too.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you where I had him. Maybe I'll save that for the end. But we're gonna get to our number 3 guy. We're gonna get into our top 3 guys here. And number 3 we have Woodson. Rod Woodson at number 3. The great Baltimore Raven. and Oakland Raider at number 3. This was a guy that was on all of our lists. OY had the best reaction, so I'm going to give it to OY.
Okay, guys. This is when I texted you guys and I said there was going to be a guy everybody was going to overrate and a guy everybody was going to underrate. The underrated guy was Rod Woodson. I had a feeling. I had him at number 2 on my list.
Me too.
This guy was unbelievable. I'm really shocked that he's number 3. Super Bowl champ, 6-time All-Pro, first team All-Pro, 3-time second team All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowler. Led the league in picks twice. He was an All-Decade team. He made the 75th anniversary team. He made the 100th anniversary team.
Bam.
This guy was
Defensive Player of the Year.
Bam.
Huh?
Defensive Player of the Year.
Bam.
1993.
Player of the Year. Listen. I hate the Steelers, but this guy was unbelievable, and he did it at 2 positions. I know the other Woodson did too, but this guy was better.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for a certain corner who played in the same era, this guy might have been the greatest.
Who's number one? Who's probably number one?
Right.
We'll see. Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
I think, Rod Woodson might have been better at Deion at like returning picks, scoring. Maybe it's debatable, but he was so good at it.
For sure.
He was really dangerous when he had the ball in his hands.
Deion was a better dancer, though.
He was a better dancer. I mean, I think Deion was more dangerous. We'll get into that later, but no, man, I'm very high on Woodson. Again, I hate the team that he played for, but I can't take away how great. I saw it firsthand, right? Like you watch all these games against the Cowboys, like whatever. And he did it for a long time, so I had him very high on the list. I'm a little surprised that he fell to number 3.
Yeah, NF, go for it,
man.
Man.
I had him at number 2, third all time in interceptions of 71. I mean, just everything OY said. To be honest, this guy had one Super Bowl, I think, with the Ravens. Could have had a couple more with the Raiders. Could have had a couple more with the Steelers. This guy was unbelievable. I think he's better than the other Woodson. I had Rod at number 2, right behind Deion.
Yeah. Well, listen, Rhonde, do you have a lot to say about Rod Woodson? Because if not, I'll go off.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
You guys are all wrong.
Yeah.
Where do they have him? Where do they have him?
9.
It's I understand why, but I'm going to go ahead and get into him in the interest of time here. So 71 picks. That is incredible. Third all time. 1.4K interception return yards. That's second all time. 12 interception TDs. That's number 1. He's number 1 all time in interception touchdowns. 24 fumbles as well, by the way. That's 71st all time. And he's in a position where maybe that doesn't happen a lot unless you're Charles Tillman. So this guy, it was very, very close between the Woodsons about who I had at number 1. So this guy's absolutely very, very underrated. He's kind of fell down.
You had Rod where?
We're gonna get to our number 2 guy here. It's very. I had Rod and Charles Woodson very close to each other, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, but we're gonna get to the number 2 guy. Number 2 guy on this list, very, very important here, is Charles Woodson at number 2. The great Packer, the great Raider, Charles Woodson here. Who should I let speak first about this? Who wants to speak about Woodson? Go ahead, Naif.
5th all-time in interceptions, 65. Defensive Player of the Year, 2009. Rookie of the Year, 9-time Pro Bowler. Led the league in interceptions twice. Most consecutive seasons with a pick 6. Super Bowl champion. This guy's unbelievable. I had him at number 3 on my list, though. He was not better than Rod Woodson.
Yeah.
But incredible talent. He also switched to safety late in his career and prolonged his career, and he was a really good safety, too. Great player, man. Great defensive back overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Naif said, and also say he might be the second greatest two-way player on the list. Like, second greatest guy who could also play receiver. He was also, I don't know. I don't think Rod Woodson played receiver. That's why.
No, but in college, right? You're talking in college. I mean, he didn't really do it. Yeah. Okay, no, I'm saying Charles Woodson.
Yeah. He played like here and there a little bit in the pros. Yeah. But he might be the greatest college player on this list. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
He won the Heisman, right? So, I don't have too much to add. I don't know, man. I just cannot. I cannot agree with him being number 2. I have him at number, I think 4, like 3 or 4. But yeah, man, great player. I love the player. I really enjoyed watching his career. But
really,
and it was a fumble. That was a fumble, by the way. Tuckle. That was a fumble. So
very hotly contested. But Rada, go ahead and say your piece before I go off on Woodson here.
First of all, I don't like that you guys just brushed over the fact that he's the only defensive player in all of history to ever win the Heisman Trophy. Okay.
You said it.
No, you just brushed it. Oh, he also won. No.
Yeah, but he also played offense.
That's how good he was. He was so good.
Yeah,
he was also a part. He also has culture. Okay? He's a part of the Tucker. All right, that's a fumble. We all know that. But he's also I think he's the birth of the new cornerbacks. This guy was the first guy who can do it. Really can do it all. He's like Revis. Don't throw to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's that guy. And what happened?
He got fixed.
Exactly.
He got
What do
fixed.
you want?
Absolutely.
I have my number
A legend. An absolute legend. He would be number one if it wasn't for we all know.
No, listen.
Baby.
Listen, he is number one. Charles Woodson, to me, is the greatest cornerback of all time. Easily.
Wow.
Easily.
Wow.
When you go over everything that this guy has done, his body of work, absolutely the greatest of all time. 65 interceptions, 5th all time. 966 interception return yards, that's 12th all time. 183 passes defense, 4th all time. And this is a guy that didn't fully play in the era when those things were counted. 11 interception return touchdowns, 2nd all time. 33 forced fumbles. That's, again, 20th all time, but 2nd amongst cornerbacks after Peanut Tillman, who basically only did forced fumbles. No other cornerbacks are even in the same ballpark when it comes to forcing fumbles and doing interceptions at the same time. This guy was the king of turning defense into offense. Like you said, Heisman Trophy winner, extremely decorated, had the stats to back up all of his flash, and 997 solo tackles, 14th all-time in tackles. That's in a league where you have defensive linemen and linebackers and safeties and all this kind of stuff. And he played for 18 years. Nobody has his resume. Oh, why? I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
No, I mean, he was a great player. I don't like. It's sounding like I'm kind of hating on him when I don't. I love Charles Woodson. I think he was amazing. I cannot have him above. Even if you want to say, hey, so I had Mel Blount, I think, higher than him. But if you want to tell me Charles Woodson is better than Mel Blount, that's fine. But like, bro, there's no way I can put him over Rod.
He's definitely better than Mel Blount.
That's fine, but I'm saying there's no way I can have him over Rod Woodson or prime time. Because
It was close. It was close for me between him and Rod Woodson, but I had Rod Woodson higher.
Well, here's the thing. I think Rod Woodson, as great as Charles Woodson was at making plays, right, like getting picks, getting ball, I think Rod Woodson was even better than Charles Woodson.
Yeah, as a ball.
It's funny because they're both kind of similar, actually, if you think about it, right? They both, were able to take the ball away, and then they both moved to safety, and they were great at safety as well. But, yeah, there's no way I can have him. I'm sorry. Like, we'll get to that in a second, but
We will.
he's not the greatest one.
Before we get to number one, guys. Okay, before we get to number one, can I just get a quick recap of who were in the top 10?
Yeah. Number 10, we had Tide, Rhonde Barber, and Eric Allen. Number 9, we had Mel Blount. Number 8, we had Ty Law. Number 7, Darell Green. 6, Aeneas Williams. 5, Champ Bailey. 4, Darelle Revis. 3, Rod Woodson. 2, Charles Woodson. And our number 1 greatest cornerback of all time is, I lost the drum roll, but it is Deion Sanders, prime time, which I have a big issue with, but I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go first. Ryder, why don't I let you go first here? You haven't gone first yet. Go ahead and go first. Talk about
It's
prime
pretty
time.
obvious for me. You guys probably already all knew that I was going to pick prime time as number 1. He is the epitome of flash, of style, but not just that, performance. He is what I think all football players should be. Anybody in sports, you're an entertainer, okay? Entertain with your performance, with your style, with your everything. This guy, what can I say, man? He's still entertaining till today. Can you say that about any other cornerback? No, you can't. He had stories about him. You guys remember the story where he did not warm up for his combine. Why? Because he said cheetahs don't warm up. Come on, man. Now, what?
And then still ran a 4.2. Still ran like a 4.2.
Come on, guys. This guy, athletic. He's like, to me, he's the perfect football player. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that said that. He is everything that you want in a football player. He played corner. I think he played played wide receiver. And he made big plays as a wide
Can
receiver.
I touch up on
He
that?
was a returner, and he played big plays as a returner. Corner made big Super Bowl champion. Went to another team, Super Bowl champion, and he was important. Without him, they couldn't win. They needed that guy. I don't care about his stats. He's prime time, baby.
Went to an HBCU, didn't win anything. Went to Colorado, not gonna win nothing.
College?
Go ahead,
Who cares about
NFOY.
college, man?
He's a great college coach too. Let's give him a chance in Colorado.
Well, yeah, let's see what he does in the Big Five. Go
Can
ahead.
I just touch up on what Lully said about him scoring and returning? This guy scored a touchdown 6 different ways. He had an interception return, punt return, kickoff return, a touchdown catch, a rushing touchdown, and a fumble recovery return for a touchdown. So that's just 6 different ways that he scored a touchdown. Won 2 Super Bowls, Defensive Player of the Year in 1994, 8-time All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, best returner of all time, I think. I think him and Hester, number 1, number 2, easily. 53 career interceptions, which is incredible for a guy that teams didn't throw to. Deion is the greatest cornerback of all time, and you're blasphemous.
Hands down.
Blasphemous, Omar. The fact that you didn't have him as number 1 is, I don't know, man. Where did you have Richard Sherman? That's what I really want to know.
You know, I didn't have him on my top 10 as well. He didn't have the
Wow.
stats. He didn't have
I had
the
him
stats.
on my top 10.
Oh, what?
Did
Did
you?
you talk
I know.
about Deion Sanders yet?
Go ahead, OY.
No, he didn't. He's about to.
Wait, did you get all of Naib's thoughts on it?
Yeah, he
I'll
scored
ramble
6
again.
different ways. He has he's as good a punt returner and kickoff returner as Devin Hester. Absolutely makes no sense. And it's amazing
there.
how many interceptions he had given they didn't throw it to him. Like, that makes some sense.
No, listen. He had 53 career interceptions. If they threw it to him like Charles Woodson, he'd have like 250. So let's keep it at that.
Why
Hyperbole.
Baggers, why are you not counting the fact that his best performances were in the biggest games, period? That's why he's called.
Yeah, do you remember that Falcons game?
Yeah.
That first game when he went to San Francisco and he played the Falcons and he was talking crap with Under Horizon.
Yeah,
And then he had that pick 6 in Atlanta and he danced his way to the end zone.
yeah.
This guy was box office.
Was that-
I don't think we'll ever see another quarterback like him again.
Okay. Go ahead, OY.
So before I get into like the stats, so this guy had the size, the speed, the strength. He was, I think, like a prototype for a corner. I think he's the greatest corner of all time. He might be the greatest DB of all time, and he might be the 2nd greatest defensive player of all time.
Wow.
Who's number 1?
I think
Lawrence Taylor.
we'll get to that. Big picture. So 1994, right? The Cowboys, we had won 2 Super Bowls. Here's what you need to know about Deion. 92, 93, we win 2 Super Bowls. Cowboys win 2 Super Bowls. Both those seasons, we had beaten the 49ers. The 49ers lost to us. These were the 2 super teams of that time, right? These are like all-time great teams. 49ers go and they hire Deion basically as a mercenary. They sign Deion. It swings the balance of power. Right
That was
now,
a PI though. That
It
was
was a PI.
100% a PI.
he played a great game in that championship game, which is an all-time classic game. I do think it was PI, but he played great in that game. 49ers going to win the Super Bowl. Deion has 14 picks that year. He's the defensive player of the year. By the way, he finished 3rd in MVP voting as a corner that year. So balance of power swung. So what did the Cowboys do to get it back? They go out and sign Deion the same year after they win the Super Bowl, and then lo and behold, the Cowboys go on and win the Super Bowl again in 1995. So that's one thing, big picture, right? Another big picture point is, again, he takes away half the field. Your number 1 guy is gone, or your number 2 guy is gone. If you want to give help to your number 1 guy with somebody else, that's what we did for a lot of those years. Here's the other thing. I know you emphasize picks a lot because they turn into offensive, a type of offensive production. So 1996, Michael Irvin. I don't remember if it was a suspension or if it was an injury. I don't remember, but Irvin was out for 5 or 6 games, maybe more. I don't remember. Deion was our number 1 receiver, guys, and he had I have the stats right here. He had, let's see, hold on, just a second. Sorry, he had. Okay, he had 36 receptions, 470 yards, and a touchdown as a corner. So he's playing both ways. Like, he's playing corner, and he's our number one wide receiver that year. Like, at least for, like, that period of time.
Why? So you're saying Baggers is wrong, right?
Well,
I
listen.
am respectfully... Yeah, I am respectfully...
Listen, all three of you.
Disrespectfully.
Yeah.
All three of you obviously had him number 1 on your list, okay?
Blasphemous.
I had him number 5 on my list. Number 5, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why, all right? First, I'm going to acknowledge why I think he is great, like you guys talked about here. He's 4th all-time in interception return yards, obviously. 1.3K, that's amazing, okay? I acknowledge that he is a tremendous football player all around, right? So he plays receiver, he returns kicks, he's a great defensive back, he takes off the field, whatever. All that stuff. Absolutely.
Whatever.
All that stuff, right?
Whatever.
However, putting him number 1 on this list when there are guys that have 20 more interceptions than him that played the same amount of time, okay? Number 1. Number 2, he is a guy that when he finished playing football, he went over and played in the MLB, okay? He went over played a different sport. He was going out, he was partying, all this kind of stuff. And he was the number 1 issue I have with this guy is what he is most known for, to me, on the football field, is a guy that avoided contact at all costs. All right? Avoided tackling all throughout his career. He avoided contact. Which, if somebody were to catch the ball against him,
but they did it.
Fair play, and he would let him go. He wouldn't even try to tackle him because he didn't care, because he was going to go play baseball. He didn't want to go risk it. He was going to go party. He didn't want to get injured. He just cared about just when the ball was in the air, can I get it from you or not? And then if you catch it, he's not going to give his all. To me, he was a very selfish player, all right? He was very selfish in that way. He was not a team guy to not go and give your all on all these plays, as opposed to some guy like Charles Woodson, who's top 10 in tackles all time. For him not to do that, he is not the ultimate team football player. He is not the ultimate cornerback, because as a cornerback, if somebody catches the ball on you, you need to go tackle him. You need to be physical and tackle him. You need to do that for your team. So those are my big issues with him. Listen, he's top 5 for me, all right? But of course, his stats, no, don't tell me that he's going to be number 1. No way. And his overall approach to the game, I have a big issue with that. So that's why I have him at number 5.
Omar, can I just leave you with
of course.
one more thing?
No, we could discuss, baby. We're not leaving. We're leaving him with 100 things.
Go ahead. What is that background noise? Yeah. So basically, when the receiver caught the ball on him, he would go straight to the studio and record that album instead of going and tackling the guy, going for a touchdown.
Nice. Can you please just, okay, we get it, all right? But
Oh, we get it. Yeah, keep playing more music.
Yeah, but Baggers, okay.
Yeah.
You keep saying, oh, he has 20 less interceptions than the next guy, or whatever you said, right?
And Ron
so
Woodson.
guys have 20. Okay, but have you ever heard of the word? Damn, I forgot the word. I guess I haven't even heard of the word. Okay.
Yeah.
But garbage time, that's the word. All right. Some guys get a lot of interceptions in garbage time. It's not, you're missing context. You just keep looking at stats and you're not making context.
Oh, there's a lot of context.
He made the biggest plays in the biggest moments. That's what you want. He's like Jordan.
No, honestly, listen. He was a great player at that specific at those specific skills that he had. But when it comes to one thing that I think is very important, he didn't do it. The fact that you're avoiding contact and you're a football player, I mean, that's like kicker stuff. That's like punter stuff.
Where was Randy Moss on your list?
I think like 3.
1.
No. Jerry Rice was number 1 on my list.
Whatever,
list.
man. Okay?
But my thing is like he's a corner. Like I get it. But
Wait, what were you guys saying?
We're still talking about his tackling. Like he's a corner.
You have to allow a catch in order to tackle. And I think
How
the guy
many
got
times-
away.
And
How many times?
he allowed many catches, okay? It's not like he didn't allow any catches. And once he did, he's like, fair play. Go score a touchdown. That's pretty bad.
He respects
That's
the
pretty
game.
bad.
But if you're so good at something, like I don't know, I don't think like we can hold him. So do we say, oh, LT, like he wasn't that great in pass coverage? I don't know. Like I don't really care. Like I don't really care about that.
But I don't value pass coverage the same way I do a guy that plays defense that doesn't want to tackle, that actively doesn't want to tackle.
Who was your number one tight end, Baggers?
Who did I have? Tony Gonzalez.
Okay. All right. He was pretty good at blocking.
No, he was okay. He wasn't the great.
But blocking. I think blocking is completely different. I mean, your blocking is completely different.
It's part of your job.
Listen, no. But listen, your job on offense is to score points, and your job on defense is to tackle, or to stop them from scoring.
No. Yeah, and what did this guy do? This guy stole the ball from other court offenses. This guy ensured that other offenses did not throw the ball his way.
He did half the job.
It's not half the job.
How do you get somebody down in football?
Okay, did he have zero
Tackle.
tackles, Omar? Did he have 0 tackles?
Did he have 0 tackles? Obviously not. But his tackles for a defensive back are extremely low.
Are they extremely low
Yeah.
for the amount of passes that came his way?
Listen, even if you are like, it's like a run play, all right? If there's like, because that's like half the game. Half the game is running. He ain't going to tackle the runner. That's a big thing.
He knows what he's good at. He's good at taking the ball from the other team and dancing his way to the end zone.
Really good at that. Really good at that. But also part of your job as a defensive back is you cannot actively avoid contact like that. I mean, if you're like Sean Alexander, whatever, like all these guys that try to do stuff like that, there's a big lack of respect for them, honestly. So that's what I mean. I don't know how else I can say it. That's pretty much what I have to say about the guy.
Clearly, you were outnumbered here, and you were wrong.
If this was like Dwayne Goodrich or something, then yeah, sure. But
You don't even know who Dwayne Goodrich is, Omar. It's only me.
Yo, stop bringing people from the 20s, man.
Yo, you'd like him. He's a killer.
Again with this, how many killers do we have in the NFL these days? That's crazy, man.
It's a contact sport. They were just taking the contact to the next level.
Oh, is it? But you know who didn't take contact to the next level? Deion Sanders. And that'll do it for this episode of the Football v. Football.
Wait. We haven't done, okay? Can we just mention some of the people that were on my list that didn't even...
Sure. Yeah, we can do it. Since we have more time, go ahead.
Jason Sehorn, Harrison Smith.
No, Baggers, please. Can you please talk about some of the guys that I put on there that didn't make it?
Do you have your phone with you, or are you recording from your phone?
Yeah. You know what? I'll pull it up, okay?
Let me see.
You guys are disrespectful, man. Seriously.
Wait, let's talk about the guy that I think was the most prominent, I guess, honorable mention. Is Richard Sherman, right?
Yes.
I had him on my list.
I want to talk about Richard Sherman.
That's another one.
I had a hard time leaving him off. I had him at number 11, basically.
8.
I think he is actually a guy who fits which I'm kind of surprised you didn't have him at 10, because he kind of fits your bill a little bit. He has the numbers, right? He has the picks. He has the deflections.
He didn't have that many picks.
Culture. Don't forget the culture.
He didn't have that many picks, and he's another guy where teams didn't. He took away a whole side of the field, and I guess Omar does not appreciate that.
Listen, if I wanted to be a homer and talk about how much I personally like Richard Sherman, he would be very high on this list.
He's number 8, man.
But to me,
number 8. That's great.
I had him maybe like 12, 13.
Stephon Gilmore on this list.
Stephon Gilmore, the guy that's still playing.
Stephon Gilmore, by the way, at some point was the highest paid player Bill Belichick paid. He doesn't pay anybody, and he paid this guy.
Maybe
you guys have Patrick Peterson on the list?
Maybe he has some dirt on him. No, I didn't have Patrick Peterson.
Do you guys remember Nnamdi Asamoah? How dare you?
Bro, that guy was like a one-hit wonder with the Raiders. He came
what
to
about
the
Antoine Winfield?
There it is, Antoine Winfield. And now we're in.
He's gonna list Antoine Winfield?
Yeah, he definitely did.
Actually,
oh my God,
I do think we got to mention. This isn't me being a homer. Terrence Newman was actually good for a long time, and he was actually better when he left the Cowboys. Like he was a better player for the Vikings and the Bengals, actually. So
Adam Pac-Man Jones.
Nah, man. He has one
Contact
good
off
year.
the field. This guy was.
Contact off the field. But yeah, I mean, let me just say something about Sherman here, because like obviously he has the most important play I think in Seahawks history. You know, the tip. If he doesn't tip that ball away, Seahawks don't go to the Super Bowl and they don't trounce the Broncos. And he was like he brought the attitude to that team. Like he was really transformational to the championships of the championship of the Seahawks and almost the second one.
Greatest trash talker of all time.
In my eyes, because he's on my favorite team,
NFL.
he's the greatest trash talker for the Seahawks in Seahawks history for sure.
I think all time NFL.
But
That's
of course, like, I mean, you gotta look at the stats. Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. But his stats, I just couldn't. And he only played for 11 years. He just ran out of gas kind of too soon.
He never had gas.
He had a lot of gas. He had gas enough to win a championship for sure.
He was never fast.
Antoine Winfield didn't win a championship. He didn't have gas.
Oh, you're gonna go there, bro?
Yeah, I mean, come on, don't compare Winfield to Rich Sherman.
Yeah, Winfield's way better.
Let me just talk about a few more guys, and then I'll go to you guys. So Charles Tillman, king of the punch out. He was the king of forced fumbles. Sixth all time in that. He was amazing. Aqib Talib also was like on the fringes for me, kind of like
Snatched the chain, man.
15th or
he was
so.
on the fringes for me too.
Ray Buchanan, Deangelo Hall, Asante Samuel, those guys.
Buchanan.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about Ray.
Those guys. These guys were on the fringes for me. Like 11-12 was like Asante Samuel, Deangelo Hall, Ray Buchanan, those guys. And I'll just name I'll name one more guy here. Let me see. Yeah. So one current guy. So I like to do this. So Marcus Peters, right? So Marcus Peters has 32 interceptions. He's a current guy. But let me just tell you why. Let me just tell you why here. So Marcus Peters has been in the league for 6 years, right? He has 32 interceptions. He has 800, which is 100, whatever, but 822 interception return yards. That's 25th all time. He's only played for 6 years.
He's only played for 6 years?
Yeah, he has 6 interception touchdowns. 92 pass deflection, 79th all time. Sorry, he's played for 8 years, but he was out all of 1 year with an ACL tear, and last year he only like played a few games where he's like really dropped off. So I bring him up to say that he had a really, really brilliant prime of those 6 years, but he's like really, really kind of like fallen off now. But those 6 years, like he could have been. Like, he was on a trajectory to become, like, really, really good. Anyway, I just wanted to mention those guys.
He was boomer bust there, too.
He is everything. When I troll Naya
about Trayvon Diggs? Yeah, you're talking about Marcus Peters, not Diggs.
Basically, that's Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
He definitely
you don't like his personality? That's Marcus Peters complaining about a call, I guess. Anybody else you guys want to mention before we wrap up?
Who do I want to mention?
No?
I think I'm all good here.
Okay. Oh, why? Any last ones?
I had one guy. I had Mike Haynes.
Mike Haynes? Okay.
Corner for the Raiders. Probably the second greatest corner of that decade. Obviously, like, we don't really pay much attention to the older guys, but
yeah,
very underrated corner.
Nice. How about Yada? Yada, who's the greatest cornerback of all time?
Yada's laughing at the fact that you didn't have Deion number 1. It's hilarious, right?
Nice. And there we have it.
Prime time.
You gotta try to say that like you did with CD Lamb.
In prime time.
She's gone.
And that's a great way to close up this podcast with an adorable laugh. Fellas, thank you so much for jumping on the top 10 greatest cornerbacks of all time. I think next we're going to probably go to safeties. I want to thank everyone for tuning in here as well. Huh? What'd you say?
I said Darren Sharper.
Darren Sharper. There we go. If you're watching on YouTube, like Yada is right now, go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment. It means a lot to us. If you are listening on a podcast platform, 5 stars, subscribe there as well. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all that stuff. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. We got a lot of great stuff there. Reels, posts, all that kind of stuff. We're not on Threads yet. We may join Threads eventually. For Yada, NF, OY, and the Rada. Good to have you back, buddy. Have a fantastic day, football fans.
Peace.